John Walsh. I'm your Emerging Services and Technologies librarian. And normally joining with me is Charlie, but he's over at the middle school today doing some robotics. And so it's just me. And I thought actually we'd do a special kind of edition of Talking Tech. With all the things going on right now as far as security things, internet security, I wanted to take some time to talk about that. I've been kind of doing this for a long time. Um, just to give you a quick little background, this is my 37th year in libraries doing information technology. So I've been around for a while. Sorry, 27, not 37, 27.
You started working with me, right?
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Miss Melanie, who's doing the thing over there. So I've been doing this for a while. So let's talk a little bit about security. Lately, Charlie and I have talked about different security breaches. For example, things with AT&T, things with Verizon, a lot of places. And, this is our world now. It's not when, or it's not if, it's when. And so how do you handle that? Well, there's a couple things. One, a lot of identity theft and things like that actually happen a very traditional way. Your mail is pilfered at the mailbox. So those credit card offers, those offers for different kinds of loans, people will snag those out of your mailbox, fill them out with a change of address, and you don't know that it's in your name until you do a credit report. Or they'll do other kinds of online things, or not online things, offline things, where they're grabbing your magazine subscriptions. All of those little magazine subscriptions have a barcode at the bottom, and that's how folks are getting free magazines. So a lot of identity theft, a lot of internet crimes happen in a very traditional way. So one of my recommendations is to do your best to eliminate as much mail that comes to your house as possible. And I'm not saying pay all your bills online. I'm not saying that. That is a choice. But what I am saying is that you need to do your due diligence and try to unsubscribe to a lot of things. They're always going to have some way to opt out, because it is a legal requirement in the United States that you have the ability to opt out to direct mail. And in fact, there are websites you can go on to online where you can opt out of the Direct Mailers Association. Now, that being said, those are people who are legitimately following the laws and rules. Not everybody does. And not everybody sends things or does things within the US. But you can opt out, and I recommend that you do. Spend a lot of time opting out of those credit card offers. Spend a lot of time opting out. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure kind of thing. So opt out of those ads. Shred and destroy as much as you can. So that's another thing. I was speaking to a group a couple years ago, and I had said, do you shred, your leftover stuff? And the person said, yes. And I put it in 3 different trash cans in the house. I said, okay. She goes, yeah, that makes it much more secure. And I said, not really. And she says, why? I said, because it all still ends up in the bin at the street, and that's where they're collecting it at. It doesn't happen as much in Ohio, but there are other states where people's garbage is being pilfered and then literally sent overseas for people to reassemble the shredded documents. Now, when you cross-cut shred, that helps get rid of some of this information that people are using to steal your identity. But really, overall, destroying it, my favorite recommendation is, if you have a pet, use it to line the pet's cage. It's less likely to be worked on or looked at if it's been underneath a pet for a while. Use it in a way that is environmentally sound for your garden, for compost. If you are allowed to burn, please do. Right now, I believe there is, and don't quote me, but I believe there is a burn thing going on right now in Ohio because it's been so dry. So please don't set the wildlife on fire by destroying your bills. But if you can burn, do. Get rid of all that paperwork. A lot of identity theft is paper-based. Now, I can tell you, all the security things I've done in place, I had my identity stolen, and it was actually stolen through the state of Ohio because I am an Ohio employee. So there was nothing I could do about that. And I had to go through a lot of work to get someone who fraudulently filed taxes in my name and filed for unemployment in my name because they took my information directly from the state. So that also goes back to folks that say, oh, I don't do anything on Amazon. I don't do online bank and I don't do this. Your information is out there because you receive information and send information to state agencies, and other agencies have your information. It's big money to sell that information. Now, state agencies, like places like libraries, we do not. So if you give us information, we will not share that information with anyone. But if you warranty a product and you fill out any information additional to the warranty or even the warranty itself, that information can and does get sold very often. If you get a discount card for groceries, gasoline, or any other kind of travel stuff, the reason they can give you that discount at the pump or that discount on your snacks is because they're gaining a lot of money by selling your information that has now been verified because you're a verified customer out there. So people always wonder, like, well, I don't do online banking. I don't buy anything on Amazon. I'm going to keep saying those regularly because people say that all the time. These are the ways I protect myself. But they have 20 discount cards on their keyring. That's how your information is getting out there. Now, there are services and companies that will remove this stuff. I'm not a high proponent of that because you're paying a lot of money for something that in some cases may or may not help you in the long run. Again, it's not if, it's when. So what do you do to clean up? One, in the United States, you're allowed to get a free credit report for each one of the credit companies. And so you're able to do that. Melanie's going to put up on the screen for me. She's going to do that real quick. So you want to go to the free credit reports, and you want to go to the one that's connected to the Federal Trade Commission. You want to go to a .gov site. Avoid some of the .com sites because remember, those are commercial. .gov is a government site. And it will tell you how to get them. You still get them through 3 companies. I can't think, it's Experian, TransUnion, and I can't think of the one off the top of my head real quick. Maybe it's on the screen in front of me. But needless to say, there's 3 places you can get your Equifax. Okay. They will take you to a .com, but start out from the FTC website first. Okay.
My suggestion would be to Google free credit report and then put FTC.
Yeah, free credit report.ftc. Yeah, at FTC. Because Melanie, you're not mic'd, so they won't be able to hear you. Can you go back to the screen, please? No, back to the live. So I need, yeah. And I need you to turn on the chat window too, please. Thank you.
I can put it in the chat window.
You can put it in the chat window, please. So Melanie's going to put this into the chat window. And so you'll have that. That'll also show up in everything but our podcast recording. And I'll try to put that in the description as well. Thank you. So again, we're doing a special, security one because Charlie is tied up today. And so I felt like as many things out there as possible.
Okay, so this is a .com site, but this is originating.
It is originating. That's the .com site. But again, start out from the .gov site. So can you give them the Consumer FTC Gov initial page, please?
Can I just do the free credit report page?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Okay. She's going to paste it in there. And so as she's pasting that, so again, it's not if, that's when. So first off, handle your basic things. Destroy or remove as much spurious physical mail as you can get. So offers for magazines, offers for services, offers for extended warranty, all of those things, please stay away from those. Only fill out the registration things for warranties, just the required information. And also keep track of how many discount key rings. Again, each one of those discount things that you get, they're making money to give you the discount by selling your information. There's no question of that. And that's in the fine print, by the way, when you sign up, but nobody reads the fine print. So that's a big thing. By the way, anytime you want to ask a question, throw it into the chat. I will try to answer them live. If not, I'll get back to you. So again, this is Talking Tech, and this is a special edition security one. So let's go a little bit further. So if you've eliminated paper and some of those things, the other thing I want you to pay very much attention to is where and how you use your cards. Now, you see things on social media all the time. There's a card skimmer at such and such gas station. Um, it's kind of interesting. Follow the police reports versus the social media. Um, if there's a police report about it, then I'd be concerned. If there's no police report about it, there's no mention from an actual police site. A lot of these things are just clickbait, meaning they're designed to get people to click on it and interact with it. It never really happened. Like the one I saw recently was at such and such gas station, and I'm like, but there isn't such and such gas station in my hometown. I know which gas stations. We have a lot of them, but that particular one, there is no physical gas station in my hometown. So make sure you pay attention to that, or they'll say something vague like Circle K or Speedway or Sheets or whoever. By the way, most of those gas stations, fueling stations or whatever, are required to have auditors go through that stuff, not only to make sure that they're pumping correctly, but they are now starting to require the employees to go out and do checks to make sure that there is nothing attached to the gas pump. It is still happening, but that is a requirement that I'm seeing now more and more states are adding. So yeah, pay attention to, like, is it real or is it just to get your attention? But the one place that does take your card often is when you go to a restaurant and you pay with your card and it disappears. That is a chance where your card can be skimmed. And that actually does happen and has happened recently in Cleveland, has happened in Akron, Columbus, Youngstown, Toledo, Erie. Um, that's why you'll see more and more of the pay at the table. So a lot of the restaurants will have a little kiosk. That's why, so that you and your card are not separated. So I recommend doing that or paying with cash. They can't scam you with cash. So try to pay with cash if you can. And I mean, it's hard to carry cash nowadays because we are kind of a card-based world. But pay very much attention to that. The other kind of scams that take your identity often is the simplest of all. Don't misplace your billfold or your wallet or your purse. Most identity theft happens because a purse, wallet, whatever has been taken. What's interesting is you'll see something along the way of, hey, this purse was found and returned to such and such store. It's not the finder. It's almost never the finder, but they'll find the lost purse, the lost wallet, or whatever. Okay. And that's a good Samaritan. So don't go after them. But prior to that, someone has stolen, removed, or whatever, the purse, the billfold, the wallet, taken the information, and then left it in plain sight for a good Samaritan to find and return. Because immediately you think to yourself, well, I got everything back. Well, you didn't. Someone did impressions of your card, whatever you want to call it, got your information, made photocopies, scanned it, whatever, and then put it in plain sight. So again, the person posting on, because we see this a lot in Madison, the person posting on Facebook, hey, I found your wallet, I've turned it in, never, almost never is the bad person. It's the person who got it before them and left it for them to find. Okay? Because generally the person, again, who finds it and returns it to the customer service desk at Walmart is a good Samaritan. They are a good person. It's between you and when they find it that something happens. So if I would have lost my wallet and it was turned in at the local Walmart, I'm still going to go back and cancel everything because there's a good chance that someone else saw it and interacted with it, even if every stitch of everything is back. Because my job as the bad person, if I was the bad person, is to make it look like nothing has happened. And so your wallet should look pristine. Even the cash should be there. Okay. But they've taken everything digitally. Okay. So again, don't go after the Good Samaritan, because I said this to a group and immediately someone said, oh, it's that person turned it in. Never the person turned it in. They're always a Good Samaritan. It's left on purpose for that Good Samaritan to find, to make you feel like, oh, I must have left that. You know, we're in a busy world. We're busy lives. And so again, you know, don't shoot the messenger per se, but it could happen between. So go get new stuff. Okay. And I know it's a royal pain to get a brand new whatever card. replace them. Same thing with, by the way, if you lose your library card, come in and get a new number, because it has happened where people will rack up a bunch of checkouts of materials that they can sell, video games, DVDs, expensive books, whatever. That happens. So don't forget about your library card. Replace your cards. If you feel like you're a victim of identity theft, you've got to notify people as soon as you can. File a police report. So talk to the folks at Madison Township, Madison Village, or wherever you live. File that police report. At least you have a date that says, without question, whoever, filed a police report at this date. Because you can always go back to that when someone is questioning whether or not you are the person. Because it is a little hard, like, okay, is this person trying to get identity theft changed because they actually were a victim of it? Or are they trying to get everything in a new name because they're actually committing identity theft? I can tell you my experience with taxes. It was about 3 years going back and forth to the IRS on something that happened again, not any fault of my own, a loss from the state of Ohio where my information is stored. And I ended up contacting our local state representative. And what? Federal representative. I actually reached out to our state representative too. I talked to our local federal and state representative, and I do want to give a shout out to state representatives because they have forms already for this. So make sure that you reach out to their staff because they can help you. Yeah, you want to talk to their local staff.
Our House of Representatives person, but it's the local.
Melanie, they can't hear you.
Yeah, but you can say.
Yeah. So yeah, talk to your local staff, your local county staff, for your federal representative, and reach out to them. But again, file that police report. Make sure you've talked to whomever there. Make sure that you talk to any place where your stuff is stored. So if you have a charged card with Kohl's, you got to deal with them too. And whoever, make sure you put some stops on that stuff. Make sure you've washed your credit report. Go through, make sure that everything is documented. I actually like some of those services where it'll go through for free and look to see what you're paying online. The ones that say, hey, we'll remove these services you're paying too much for. I never pay for that, but I like to see what services are listed as I'm paying for. You can do that for free. Rocket Money's example, but there's a bunch of them out there. Don't use the paid service. Just use the free one to go in and take a quick look and see. Melanie, can you go back to the screen, please? I just want the main screen up. Thank you. Just go and use one of those services to kind of look up what you're paying online and pay attention to that. Free credit report, absolutely. Do it yearly. It's free for once a year from 3 places. Run that every year. Take a look at it. If you don't understand the information in that, find help to do so because it is not necessarily the clearest thing. Also, make sure that you have all the security you need for your filing your taxes, your PIN number, all of that stuff. Go ahead and put that in there. Because that's also very, very, very handy. So let's talk a little bit more about the recovery process. Flat out, I'll tell you, if the money has left, it's never coming back. Most of these places are working outside of your U.S. jurisdiction when it comes to the money stuff, and it's gone. You can get insurance for that. There are companies that you can pay that say, I have this cyber insurance. I have yet to talk to anybody. Now, this, is maybe just my experience, but I have yet to talk to anybody who actually got a settlement from any of those companies because they pin you down with so many little variables. If you have not met all of those criteria, they will not pay out. And it's meant, like every other insurance policy, it's to keep the money on the insuring company, not on you. So I'm not a big fan of those. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other scams, the more digital scams. We've talked a lot about physical things, and that is the number one thing, in all honesty, when it comes to taking your information. And again, I'm going to do a little, we'll call it station identification. This is Talking Tech. My name is Sean Walsh, and we're talking about security today. and identity theft. So let's talk a little bit more about more complicated identity theft. If you get a phone call from the IRS, it is identity theft because they don't call you, they don't text you. Currently, ODOT and the Turnpike are having a giant issue because people who have easy passes are, and not even people with easy passes, but people are getting these text messages saying, "Hey, you need to renew your easy pass, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you owe us a bunch of money because you went through a toll booth and you didn't pay." It's all a scam because EasyPass, ODOT, they have an app and they have a specific setup, and they're not going to text you or call you. Um, Microsoft is never going to call you out of the blue and tell you that you have a security issue on your computer. They won't. Nor will Norton or McAfee or anyone else. They are not going to. And they're sure as heck not going to ask you for Target gift cards as payment for your back taxes or to fix your computer. That's not how it works. All of these entities, you have to initiate the call. So, like, I have worked with Microsoft support in my professional life. I had to jump through a bunch of hoops to even initiate the call to get them on the phone for the issue I had with the server that we were working on. And they weren't charging me Target gift cards. We had already established a purchase order and all that stuff well ahead of time before I even finished the intro part of the phone call. Feel free to ask me questions all the way through this as we're going. These places will never reach out to you. So if you get a random call that says, "Hey, your computer's been this," or "Hey, your phone is this," do not engage with them. And some of these are preying on your feelings. My favorite one, and I call it my favorite one because I think it's a heartstringy one, is your granddaughter, your daughter, your son is stuck overseas and they need cash, and all you have to do is just send them or wire this money. Well, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of your kids if they happen to be travelers or over at university somewhere or whatever. So this may seem legit. Do not do that. Please call someone on the phone. By the way, never use the number they give you in the text message or email, because we're getting pretty sophisticated with our chatbots and AI, and they'll answer you. So you could dial someone on the phone and they could pretend to be a famous person. They can mimic voices. Unfortunately, the passing of James Earl Jones, before he passed away, he allowed Disney to create some samples of his voice to then be able to recreate James Earl Jones for when he's needed for Mufasa or Darth Vader. And I've heard the recordings. You can find them online of these AI generated things. It sounds like James Earl Jones. So I could have James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman or anybody, presidents, congressmen, on the phone, and it could be them. If I use the phone number included in that text or email, don't email back and say, "Hey, is this what you meant?" Because this happens a lot in our industry, in libraries, oddly enough. Our fiscal officer may get an email that says, "Hey, the director said you need to send this information, this money to this company." Thankfully, we're a small enough building that she can literally go into the director's office and say, "Hey, did you do this?" But in some instances, places are too big. They're separated out, and the admin are in a different building. There's a lot of cases in Ohio where it's a part-time group. Say it's a football boosters or a Grange or a historical society that doesn't meet very often. And the fiscal officer and the CEO or whatever is, they don't actually spend time in the office per se. And an email will come through to the fiscal officer and saying, "Hey, we forgot this bill." And she's like, "Oh, and you got to pay it right now." And you look up and the address is some farm field somewhere in Iowa with a P.O. box. But if you did your due diligence, you'd find that. But it came directly from pretending to be the person in charge. So watch out for that. Always, always, always send a different email or call on the phone. I like calling the phone best. And never call on the phone for the phone number they give you. Always use the phone number you can find on your own. Reach out to these places. Again, Microsoft will never call you. The IRS will never call you. McAfee will never call you. Norton will never call you. These places don't call you. Being selective about your phone calls as well. Um, Answering every call isn't necessarily the best thing in the world. I'm a big fan of screening your calls. So I let stuff to go to voicemail if I don't know the number. And then I evaluate it from there. I mean, we're in a current season where there's a lot of political surveys and stuff going through, and they're calling your cell phone, your home phone, and stuff like that. I let all that stuff go to voicemail. And if I choose to do that survey, I then will engage it later. But I don't have to choose to do that, and I avoid it as much as I can because you don't want to do as much work for them as possible. So you don't want to prove that you exist as best you can. So be very cognizant of that kind of stuff. What other protections can you do? You can always go through on your own accounts and put limitations. You can put in limitations that say, hey, notify me if there is a credit request. Notify me if a deposit has happened. Some people get credit card. Morgan jumped in there. Get a credit card notification every time their credit card is used. And depending on how you use your cards, that's very good. A lot of the banks now, if your card is used in a weird location. So for example, it didn't happen to me, but it happened to someone I know. Their card was, they're in Ohio here, and their card was used in Texas, physically in Texas, not online in Texas. The credit card company went, how? They just paid for gas in Ohio, and now they're using a card in Texas, and there's not enough time to fly between. We're going to stop this and reach out to the person. Okay. But you want to put that kind of monitor on there. You want to make sure that, hey, that card I have, that card I used is under control. And keep the number of cards you have. I know a lot of people are like, hey, they gave me a free credit card. I've never used it, but I have it just in case. Don't leave those laying around. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying laying around isn't like physically laying around. Don't have them if you're not using them. If you're not watching them and you're not actively looking at that bill, get rid of them. I understand having an emergency card and stuff like that, but that being said, you should use that emergency card periodically. Make sure that you're interacting with it. Make sure that it's not gone dormant. Pay attention to your statements. My favorite part of the scam is, how do I gain access to your account? I put a little bit of money in there to make sure that it's live and I've got full access. Who complains about extra money? Nobody. Maybe $1, whatever. That's a good sign. If you all of a sudden see like $1 out of nowhere that's been added to your account, or some nominal amount that isn't clarified, it isn't like interest from your bank or something like that, be concerned. Figure out what the heck that thing is. Again, most people are like, hey, I got an extra, because you're going to notice the extra. You're not going to care about the extra. You're going to notice when someone takes something away, aren't they? But that's the first sign is, oh, well, I'm going to test to see if I have access to the account. I'm going to transfer $1 into it. Let's see if it works. It works. Good. Now I'm going to take whatever's in there. So be aware of that. Be aware that, it's not just emails that reach out to you. Again, phone calls, letters, all of that is still a very viable option. So be very cognizant of all of that stuff. I'm not saying, look side-eyed at every person who walks by your door, but definitely look side-eyed at every piece of mail you get. Pay attention to how and where you use your card at. Establish limits for that. And yeah, it's a pain in the posterior every time you want to get a large purchase done that you have to undo all of this stuff. But how often are you buying a house or a car or something large? If you are, then you probably should have other things in place. The average person buys a car or a house pretty infrequently. So having limits to say you can't do this shouldn't impact you too much. Pay attention to your relatives. I hate to say this, but you know, folks love to pick on people who are the least cognizant of these scams. That may be people who are older, maybe people who um, may have a disability, and they're really good targets. Um, a lot of disabled folks have a lot of money stolen because people take advantage of them. A lot of older folks have a lot of money stolen because people take advantage of them. Keep an eye on your relatives, keep an eye on your friends. Make sure that when your next door neighbor who has never filled out a lottery thing for anything all of a sudden wins a free trip to Barbados, that may not put red flags up on them, but it should be putting red flags up on you. So again, if you're the son, the daughter, the aunt, the uncle, the whatever, keeping an eye on these folks, and they say something like, I just won something. Why? How? Ask those questions. Pay attention. You know, you want to be a little insular about your own credit and stuff, but that being said, take care of the folks around us. If you have an elderly neighbor, kind of say, hey, do you need any help with some of these things? Do you have someone kind of helping you with this? And if there's a relative or whatever, good. If not, maybe that's a time to help out a little bit, or direct them to services through AARP or through other, the senior centers and things. Direct them to those folks. Make sure that they have someone kind of helping them keep an eye on some of this stuff. Because it's really easy to take advantage of these folks, and we want to protect them as much as we can. And, they're a great target. My favorite target is, oh, you bought this thing and it never shipped. So we're going to send you back a refund. Can you please give us all of your account information so we can send you back this refund? People forget sometimes what they've purchased from Amazon or one of the catalogs. It happens. And sometimes you're like, oh, well, the thing never shipped and that's why I never got it. So yeah, I want my money back. I'll give you all of my pertinent banking information to get that money back. It's a great scam. Look for those kind of things. Pay attention to when the news says, hey, AT&T had a giant data compromise. If you used AT&T, well, I don't have an AT&T phone. Well, they also own DirecTV. Do you have DirecTV? They also own such and such. Do you have that? You got to kind of pay attention to this stuff. You can't be an ostrich and burying your head in the sand for some of these things. So always be very cognizant of when there's a news break. And I will tell you, when it makes major news, this thing has been out in the wild, as we say, out live for months, maybe even years before the news media gets a hold of it sometimes. Because sometimes these companies are doing damage control. They're identifying what has been compromised and who they have to reach. They're also determining, if it's a big enough corporation, how much is it going to cost us to actually handle this? Or should we just wait till people notice? It's sad, but it's not that much different than how they do recalls. Recalls for a vehicle only really happen when something bad happens. They generally sit on those things. And technology is not that much different. And, some of these compromises have happened months and months and months before the general public hears about them. So again, check your credit reports. Minimize your open vectors. Don't have credit cards laying around that you don't use. Even the emergency one, use one for once in a while. Actually check your statements before you pay the bill. And if you're paying everything online, you should be reading all the statements online. I'm not a huge fan of paper statements because they contain a lot of information. But that being said, it's really easy to ignore the online statement and just pay the bill. Make sure that hey, I'm looking at my cell phone and there's a whole bunch of calls I never made. Did someone clone your cell phone? And are they piggybacking on your account? Pay attention to that kind of stuff. And I know it's like, oh my gosh, I have so many other things to do. Ounce of prevention, pound of cure. Always, always, always stay on that kind of stuff. So, I want to talk a little bit about security. This is a kind of a special edition version of Talking Tech. And I know this is the least fun thing I ever get to talk about. I generally joke when I do this live, I carry a thing of Tums with me and I hand it out to the audience. If anybody has, acid reflux after some of these presentations, I can't do that with you online or on our podcast. But pay attention to that. Also, let's talk a little bit about, while I've got some time here, let's talk about buying things online. A lot of people are like, I never buy anything from Amazon. Amazon and some of the big retailers are probably one of your better places because they're under so much scrutiny that generally when you have to put in a thing that says, hey, this transaction didn't go right, they fix it. The things you buy kind of barter and with cash, that's where you can kind of get scammed. If I'm going to buy something that I need to buy physically from someone, generally I look up a common meeting area. A lot of police departments, and I don't know for sure if Madison Village or Madison Township has anything, but a lot of police departments have a designated area, and sometimes you even put up a sign that says for online transactions, where you can do the physical exchange, like you bought through Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace, where it is a well-lit area near a police station, often with a camera on that area. If I was going to buy something that I had to physically pick up, I'm not going to go to someone's house. I'm going to go to a very specific meeting place that I know is secure and safe. I'm also not going to transact the money until I have the item. That happens more often than not. If it's too good to be true, it probably is, The other thing is, going back to Amazon or Walmart, make sure that, are you buying from Amazon or are you buying from a third-party place? Because they do have third-party entities there. If it says fulfillment by Amazon, that's one thing. If it's some other company just using Amazon to put it up there, that's a different story. Still, Amazon and Walmart and some of those places are better when it comes to being able to get your money back. But be very cognizant of where you get this from. And again, if something happens to you, make sure that you've documented it. Fill out a police report. Talk to the township. Talk to the village. If you have to, talk to the sheriff. Make sure that is all documented, and then go back through and start canceling and or updating your information. Have good passwords. Change them when you can. Use two-factor authentication at all possible. That's where it has to be a password and something else you have. A number that's generated on your phone, a number that's generated on a key fob, a text message with a code that you have to answer, or a call, or a button on your phone that pops up and says, yes, this is me. Answer those things, set that up. Slowly but surely, you're not going to get much of a choice. Two-factor is going to be a thing. It is kind of a thing now. And going back to that cybersecurity that some people get for insurance, if you're not doing two-factor authentication, that's the first thing they come back to you and say, well, you're not doing that, so we're not going to pay out your claim. Read the fine print on those. Pay very much attention. Anybody else have any questions out there? I know this is always the doom and gloom of presentations, but I felt like we needed to throw this out there. All right. Well, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to throw something in the chat after the fact. We will be doing some of these type of presentations live in the building. So if you are local to Madison Public Library and you'd like to come out and visit, we have a lot of these kind of presentations. We do work well with our state and local and county agencies and bring those folks out there. We've had some wonderful presentations from treasurers and auditors from various government entities that have come out and done identity theft, and they've done presentations on how to do recovery. Keep your eyes peeled for that at our library. What online payments do you trust? That's a subjective one. I trust the company, but I don't always trust the methodology. As far as I am fine, Venmo, PayPal, services, Cash App. PayPal and Venmo are pretty solid overall for your payments. I have no problem with those. My recommendation for some of those is you can tie some of those to limited accounts A lot of banks do what they call a limited account, where either that account is only used for online transactions, or they only issue a number for online transactions that either is a turn and burn, meaning you use it once, or you only use it for PayPal. So that it's very well documented that this account only has $500 in it, just to say 500, and it's only linked to PayPal. And when the $500 is gone, you have to replenish it, or you have to put in more to make your payment. Do not link these things to your main accounts. Always link them to a subsidiary, online account only. I try to use gift cards as much as I can for some of these things. It's getting harder and harder to do that. But I have used gift cards not to make the payment, but to be behind the payment company. So the payment company say PayPal is doing it, but I've used a Visa gift card to back it. It's getting harder and harder to do that. So PayPal still takes the risk, but it's not physically connected to my bank account. I try to keep that as separate as possible. So again, it's really easy to have Venmo and PayPal go right into your checking account. I don't do that. I have a separate account just for that. And I have a very limited amount of money in that account. And sometimes I only have the amount of money I can have to be in there to maintain it barely. So work well. These accounts are out there from your bank or your credit union. Find them and use them. I really like the turn and burn credit card numbers. Those are my favorite, where that credit card number is only good for that one payment. And I love those. Those are great because yes, it's a little more work on my part, but again, I'm not handing my credit card out to everyone under the sun. I'm handing out a number that's good for one transaction. Any other questions out there? Thanks, Morgan. Those are good questions. And it is becoming more and more. I mean, I was at a farm market and they were like, what kind of transaction do you have? And we're like, cash. And they're like, oh, they had to think about the cash part for a second. And yeah, I mean, I'm actually a big fan of Square and some of those. The reason being is because there's a lot of messaging back and forth with Square. I get, I know what my receipt is. I know what my transaction is. I know when it's happened. And I use a lot of times I'll use a gift card, a Visa debit gift card kind of thing to do those purchases sometimes. Well, more often than not. So I carry a lot of gift cards because then again, I've purchased those gift cards and they've secured and I've used them. I don't give them to anyone else. Any other questions, quandaries, or queries? Is PayPal goods and services for purchasing sewing machines or cash? Yes. Again, I'm hoping that you're purchasing those sewing machines and not going to someone's house and meeting them in a neutral location. I realize the Singer sewing machine, especially some of the old Trudel ones, they got some weight to them because that's cast. I totally understand that. But that being said, do not go to someone's house unless you absolutely positively have to, and go with friends and make sure you have let someone know before you have left. Someone important in your life. Hey, I'm going to such and such to pick up such and such at this time. So if something happens and you don't show back up, someone knows where you are, and what you did. Try to take a person with you. Yeah, good. Then again, still, make sure someone knows you're going out there. And yes, if I was picking up a sewing machine, because I know what kind of sewing machines Morgan gets, some of them are furniture with a sewing machine added inside of it. There's some weight there, but still, find a neutral location, find some way to get that. Be very cognizant, very careful of that. And again, if you use cash is good. They can't steal your identity, but you can't get the cash back if something goes wrong. Share my trips with Google Maps. Okay, very good. Anybody else have any other questions out there? And again, this is being rebroadcast several times. Again, come to the library. We'll talk to you about this a little bit as well. Just make sure you schedule an appointment. It's easier than walk-ins. So with that, I thank you. My name is Sean Walsh. I'm your Emerging Services and Technologies person. And this was a special presentation of Talking Tech, specifically on security and identity theft. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the interwebs.